This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a soul-led leadership coach to women in midlife who are wanting more meaning in the second half. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Episode 149. Have you ever wondered what your inner power may look like as an animal? Well, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and you can find out. It's just a quick 2-minute quiz that I created for you. This is a topic that comes up so often in my coaching work with women where they stand in their power and feeling empowered. And so you can head over there, NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz and check this quick little thing out for you. And if you want more tips and information, you can just sign up after you take the quiz. Well, welcome, sisters. I am so excited about this upcoming conversation. This is a topic that I haven't had yet on my podcast. So my guest today is Linda Webb, and she is an ex-corporate executive turned Ayurvedic practitioner with 17 years experience in healthcare, diagnostics, and biotech specific to chronic disease detection and prevention, which again, I know many of my HSP clients, they often have some chronic things going on. So this is so exciting to have her on today. She actually went back to obtain her master's degree in healthcare management and throughout her own health journey discovered holistic modalities that healed her personally after years of burnout and health challenges. Years later, she left corporate America to go towards her passion of holistic approaches, merging this ancient science of Ayurveda to heal and help individuals rediscover true health. Linda, I am so happy to have you on today and have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Well, share just a little bit about your background. Like what kind of healthcare issues were you having that really kind of drew you into this field of Ayurveda?
Yeah, it's interesting. This started, I would say, early in childhood, but at that moment in time, I didn't really pay attention to those things that the mind and body kind of tell you, right? And I wasn't really aware what was going on. I thought it was normal. But being the type A go-getter that I was and striving, it showed up down the line, and it kind of manifested and took way of, showing up with pain, autoimmune, Hashimoto's disease, adrenal fatigue, like I said, the chronic pain because of all of these internal issues that I was having. And during that time, I really was extremely successful actually in my career and was working with most of the hospitals and health systems around the country and looking at prevention and diagnostics and really how to help in diagnosing patients and with the providers out there. But internally, something wasn't working with me. So that's where I took a shift.
I'm curious, when you got diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I know I've got colleagues of mine, friends of mine who it wasn't until like their 30s or 40s before they actually got diagnosed with that. And they really had to, and I know I'm going to ask this later on, but had to really advocate for themselves because sometimes it gets kind of dismissed for women, it seems like. And like, okay, that's not a big deal. How long did that really take you? I know you've been advocating for yourself over the years and you don't know what you don't know. And so you did a lot of kind of checking out things. How long did that take before you found out that's what it was for you, for your autoimmune?
Interesting enough, and especially since I was inside healthcare and understanding the process and understanding how Western medicine works, it took years. I would say, years. I was diagnosed pretty young, around 26, 27, but misdiagnosed in multiple facets from that time, all the way into probably my early 30s. Yeah. So it was an extreme struggle because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with the health system, frustrated with what I knew and what, I was always wanting patients to be their own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I provided providers on patient education and how to really do the right thing for patients and listening.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling with that. So that's another part of my journey where I took a shift as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, then share, just let's back up a second. We'll go a little high level. Share on the kind of a high level, like what is Ayurvedic medicine? Like kind of give my listeners like what that is. I know there's so many nuances and it's really in depth. And so we're not going to get knee deep in all of this stuff, but kind of on the periphery, what does that mean?
So Ayurveda or Ayurvedic medicine, it truly is one of the oldest healing systems, holistic healing systems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's been developed over 5,000 years ago. So when I say ancient science wisdom, it is the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at Western medicine, they look at really treating the symptoms, and Ayurvedic medicine looks at the whole person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mind, body, and spirit. And they look at balancing all three perspectives, not only mind, body, and spirit, but really promoting health overall, because Ayurveda is the science of life and knowledge of life. So it really looks at the whole holistic system of the person's body. And that's what's so fascinating because it's been around for the longest.
Just a few years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a few years, exactly.
Can you give some examples maybe like how Ayurveda works with different body types? Because again, I know in my mind right now, what's coming forward again, this is way back in grad school when we kind of tapped into this. I'm thinking there was like 4 kind of categories or something, and I could be way off. So if I am, please correct me. But share a little bit, like how does that work with the different body types?
Yeah. And I think for me, it was interesting because that's my knowledge of how I got through it was understanding myself first.
Oh, love it.
And from the Ayurvedic perspective and what my constitution was, this is where I help individuals, is knowing who they are first, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is their prakriti? And each of us have that unique individuality,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're all unique humans on earth, and we're all special. And so that's what's Ayurveda is very personalized. So there's 3 types, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha.
Okay.
You can be a Vata Pitta, a Pitta Vata, Kapha. There's very multiple ways of looking at it. But Vatas, if they're out of balance, they're very anxious. They might have constipation, low body weight, certain symptoms. And Pittas are that type A personality where I was in corporate America,
mm-hmm.
very much fiery, burnout, inflamed red skin, frustrated, and anger comes up a lot. And then you look at Kapha, a person that's out of balance can be, more depressed sometimes, that kind of leads them down that route of oversleeping, high body weight, or higher body weight, just very much complacent or stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tend to emotionally overeat. So you're looking at a system where if you see your imbalances, it's called Vikruti, and your Prakriti is what you're born with. But what I do is really help individuals know who they are and then how to balance the imbalances of their state. So it's a very, very specific way to look at it.
Well, I like it though, because again, it's like you're saying, and I know I've said it so many different times on the show, right? We can all be highly sensitive or empathic or, introverts or high achieving, whatever it may be, but we all are very unique. And like what you do then with them is really, let's get to understand who you are at this level. And then you kind of tailor that to them so that it does, instead of balance, I like to tell my ladies that I like to put things back in harmony because I think balance gets a little overused sometimes. And it's like, everything's got to be in perfect balance. Like, no, it's in harmony. And you're talking about what's working in harmony with their body, which then is in their health and their mind and their spirit. So all of that then goes into sync. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda is it's all the elements. So you have the space, the air element, the earth element, the water element, all these elements that we see outside in the world actually are inside us. So I love how you said the harmony perspective, because we're here really to have that peace and harmony, not only, externally, but it starts from within. And that's why I love teaching this and I love educating individuals, because it opens up a world of really understanding themselves
For sure.
more that they never knew before.
Yeah. And again, it's like we know there's a place for Western medicine, but they're lacking sometimes some of the things that coming from other cultures, like trying to build that in. And this is another way of like, okay, if I have my primary care physician, in no way am I saying leave all that stuff, stop any of your meds, whatever that is, like whatever you're on currently, keep doing what you're doing. But this is another alternate path that you can also then explore, maybe then work with your primary care physicians, right? To make that truly work for your system versus kind of doing anything, just stopping it because you heard this. Because again, legally not okay to do that. That's the disclaimer, ladies.
Yes, very much so.
Well, I'm curious then, Linda, that when the ladies that are listening, like I told you before we kind of got on our show, I've got quite a few of them that are highly sensitive or empathic, and they're go-getters like you are as well. And what are some tips that you can share from your own experience or as an Ayurvedic practitioner to help them either preventing chronic disease, managing, maybe it's the autoimmune stuff, or even adrenal fatigue, like prevention, so that it doesn't get full into burnout and then it doesn't recover? What are some tips that you could share?
Yeah. And I think what's, there's definitely tips in this, but in overall, I think for me, the starting point that I need to make it so important out there too, is that when you have a practitioner that can help guide you through this journey, and that's how I got better. It wasn't something that I self-learned. I had a guide that directed me through this.
Beautiful.
And then once I felt comfortable, I was able to embed this into my life.
Yeah.
And that is so imperative and important for everyone to understand. And I actually want to eventually have people, they can take it on their own, and then it's just a routine. It's a regular thing. And then they don't necessarily have to rely on anyone but themselves. Right. So it's very much important. But being, I would say, the empath that I am as well, I struggled a lot, especially earlier in the days with, taking on other individuals' emotions and not necessarily setting up self-care. For me, it was very much in the early days, like more, if you can say, people pleasing and corporate America.
I'll reference back on some of those previous episodes on people pleasing.
Yeah, exactly. That was me. You want to achieve, you want to do well, but down the line, something will crumble. And it's a wake-up call. And, for tips on how do I manage that, it does start with really going back to how do you take care of yourself, and can you give yourself that time? In Ayurveda, there's so many things that can help. And a lot of pieces of this is, even sleep, right? Can you commit to getting to sleep on time, but having that sleep schedule routine is important in Ayurveda. Actually, it's where can I ground myself? If I'm anxious, does nature ground me? Can I go outside, and do I feel, for me, it was like, I need to be around trees and ground myself. Right. And that truly helps. And some people have other ways of doing this, but that's something that is imperative. And anything nourishing, right, for somebody that's anxious. In Ayurveda, I put them on specific herbs, herbal medicine that can help with that. And I think nourishing is huge for the body, whether it's nutrition, whether it's certain specific oils based on what's needed. So there's a lot of ways that you can do that, but it really starts with setting a schedule and then sticking with that, and then implementing Ayurvedic tips throughout the day that can kind of get you in that direction.
It's so funny, right? That as for adults, it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm good. I've kind of sort of got a routine. Not really. I'm kind of all over the place. And yet that's how we actually thrive. We're not talking like a rigid routine, but again, like, your sleep is a priority, and trying to put something into place where you are taking care of yourself. And I know for our highly sensitive folks that being out in nature and empaths is like the balm that soothes the soul. And so whatever and how often you can get out there is so important to you getting grounded. And I really like that you said, like, to do this, you like you said, I had to work with a practitioner first so that I really understood what it was that I needed. And then I can go from there. And that's really what you then work with your clients on as well. It's like, start
Mm-hmm.
there. You can't just, the books kind of give you the history and some information,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't really tell you all of what a practitioner can actually do for you.
Exactly. Exactly. It's having that guide and definitely I would say the expertise, but really the guide of holding your hand
Yeah.
throughout the beginning of the process. I actually started, which interesting is I left Western medicine just from my health perspective when prescription medicines weren't doing anything but just keeping me on a sick cycle.
Yeah.
And that's when I went towards, okay, let me do everything, and I started to add in, all these elements of holistic healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at it and thinking, how am I turning around on all of this? But until, it's interesting. It's like, so you start to, think about in general, you can do it, right?
Uh-huh.
Once you have that motivation. But the turning point for me is when I met with my practitioner, and he really went through a whole personalized approach where I've never had any physician go through it with me in my life
Yep.
for hours,
Yeah.
right? And I learned so much. And he left, like when we finished this process, it was, really a 3-week, 4-week protocol that I stayed with him on.
Uh-huh.
But he looked at me and he's like, I want you to know that everything you've been doing through self-care and all your work, Ayurveda medicine is going to be a part of your profession in the future.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is a long time ago. Yeah. So, it was interesting. So I don't, to this day, I'm like, did he do this on purpose to manifest this? So it was just very interesting how it all aligned.
Well, I love those synchronicities though, right? When we leave our path open to for our highest good and whoever needs to come on it or whatever event needs to happen for our highest good and for others' highest goods. And to have somebody, like you said, that your practitioner, but guide come on and say, oh yeah, and this will be part of your future. It's like, what? What are you talking about? I'm just trying to get better, And then, yes, you're like, and I am. Yes, that was true.
Yeah. This was over 8 years ago, and I didn't even think about it until just recently. I found the notebook of what he said, and I was like, "This is very interesting," because I'm doing what he was doing now. So just interesting.
Yeah, it's so fun when we have those little moments of this. It's like, oh yes, telling you now, here's a synchronicity and the intuitive hit or whatever, and then unconsciously, right? It's planted. And you were already on that path by doing your own work, with going more to the Eastern medicine versus Western, and you were seeing some results. And it's like, okay, and now you've got something a real foundation to put it all together for you to help others, and it really has helped you. So that's lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, very exciting. Just love those kind of moments. Well, I'm curious then, Linda. So in the past episodes, I think it's in episode 115, 116, 117, I talk with various other podcast guests, and we talk often about women really advocating for themselves. And so when you work with some of the women, what are suggestions or tips that you help with them? Because again, you did this really in your previous corporate work. What are some of the tips that you give them now when you're working with them?
Well, there's so many things individually of, what obviously is going on from the mental perspective in corporate or your job. But for me, it took me a while to truly find my voice, which is interesting. Yep. And as a female, I was in a very male dominating type world at the very, and I realized this, and it was, I really like helping women in that perspective on, setting the boundaries, but knowing your worth, right? Because when you know your worth, your health, slowly your self-care, it just gets better and better, and you start healing, and you know where to go, and you find the experts that you need. And that really unravels to where you're supposed to go. I can't tell everybody to quit their day job, right? if they're unhappy in it. But I will say that it just starts with really knowing who you are and what you want and having that. that empowerment.
And I like what you're
So,
saying. I think so often from some of my different guests too, and even the clients that I work with, right? It's like practice to continue to step into your voice. It's always been there. But again, that's like that, like you're saying, that self-care. And when you feel grounded and you've got some boundaries and you start to practice that more, your momentum grows, but so does the confidence level. And so it's like you
right.
start to speak up more and more. And there's so many things that are still very male dominated, or, yeah, they're not open to other ideas. And it's like, it's kind of like take up your space, because you are worth it to take up your space, and it's your body and it's your health. And the only person who's really going to advocate for it is yourself. So it's like you start small and you just kind of keep growing into that. And pretty soon it's like, oh no, if I need to pivot out of this job and find something else, I always tell people, I'm like, I do the safe route. It's like usually stay in a job and then I would work part-time somewhere else, or started a job part-time, or started my own company part-time. And then when that grew, I finally left, corporate America myself. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And that is really where, the self-care comes, because that is the most important. I look at how much money I spent on trying to figure out the piece of all of it. And when it came down to, it's not the prescription meds, it's not chasing, exhausting yourself out. Like all this, time and commitment and investment of self-care was nothing comparison to the time and money I spent wasting chasing after something. Yeah. So it's very interesting looking back. And you wake up one day and you realize that this is not the path I want. I truly, really want to feel good every day when I wake up and have energy and have this passion. And everyone has that, and they can get there with self-care specifically.
Yeah. So true. So true. And again, it does sometimes we can go into our own little trance of like, well, this is all there is. I'm just going to have to live with pain, or there's nothing more. And then you wake up, like you're saying, it's like literally you just truly awaken. You're like, no, I'm seeing that I can actually have energy. I'm seeing I really can have passion. I see I really can do something different. And it's like stay awake so that you keep following that path and that passion one step at a time. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And no fear. I mean, that is the big piece of all of it.
Well, again, fear is going to come up no matter what. Every time we up level, fear loves to show its little face and then exaggerate and lie. And it's recognizing, it's like, oh, that's a part of me, but it's not all of me. And every time I take a step towards it, it then, dissipates the story, because that's all it is. Like, just because we have a thought, does it make it true?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I'm curious, Linda, before I share all of your information so people can find you and, get in touch with you and all that, I am curious. You've shared some of your self-care practices. So who is it that really has helped inspire you, whether that's been more recent or over the years? Who's helped inspire you to follow you and advocate for you, or just inspired you in general?
Yeah, I would say multiple people. It's interesting when I say I find throughout my path these people that have helped kind of heal me, right? Whether, they've all have been a part of my process. Through acupuncture, Reiki, all of these things. And then, but deep down, it's been my family has been extremely supportive. And I'm very lucky to have very, very close family members that have been able to do this, because I think early on, knowing that health is what matters, right? And I've seen family members, in the past so sick from working so hard. And it takes that turning point, whether somebody ends up in the hospital from all of it, right? From stress, whatever the case may be, but having those role models of saying, no, you can do this. This is what is not important in life. This is what is important in life. And having that spiritual connection. And for me, the spirituality piece truly has driven me through even my health.
Beautiful.
So it's keeping that strong.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm curious, do you mind sharing kind of like what your spiritual practice is?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have started spiritually. I mean, my journey has been, I've always been believer of, I believe in the higher power and the divine, in God, all of it. And my practice of meditation has really saved me. in multiple ways. And that's where I started to, get trained in meditation and Kriya yoga and helping getting even individuals that say that they can't meditate. How do they start? And that's where I started my practice 10 years ago.
Beautiful.
And it saved me.
Yep. Yeah. I often giggle when I have clients like, I can't meditate, Nicole. And I'm like, yes, you can. What you don't like is all the rush of the thoughts that come forward and it makes you uncomfortable. But that's the whole point, is you observe them versus attach to them. And that becomes life-changing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it.
It does. Oops. It does. Quieting the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So. It really is. It's so beautiful, right? I'm reading, I can't remember which book of Pema Chodron's right now. And, she talks so much about, that mindfulness practice more from the Buddhist perspective, but it's just how, we can become so unattached to all of the stuff that is driving us. And there's freedom in that, right? And that really is when we don't become attached to all of our emotions, we don't become attached to all of our thoughts. It's like, wow, we expand. And that's what we often crave. And yet, if we don't practice it, we can't actually make it happen. We keep doing the same of the same of the same.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful point, because I think with I went through a mindfulness training at UCSD, and this was years ago. And I realized how much of just that non-attachment, but compassion to yourself, that releases, and you let go of so much, right? So much external that doesn't matter when you can truly let go and feel what your body and the sensations in your body are telling you. That to me is patient advocacy.
Yes.
Because if I didn't have that mindfulness awareness of what was going into my body, what I was eating, grabbing the coffee in the morning in the past with no food, things that were so small, it made such a difference in my health. And that's really the turning point of what is good for me internally inside, and letting that go, like letting the process go and listening to each piece of my body and what's it saying to me.
Yes, absolutely. And you said it earlier too, with those, like your family members too, really supporting you. It's like your health is your foundation. If you don't have your health, then it's like the odds are you're going to die early, or you're going to have, huge healthcare costs as you go forward. And it's like when you listen to you, that is advocating to you. That's when you're listening to your body, like you're saying. I love that. Beautiful. Well, all right, Linda, share, how can ladies find you? What social media are you on? What's your website? All that good stuff. How can they find you?
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you so much for, I would love to have everyone connect with me so my website is Amani Mind, AMANI, Mind, or they can connect with me through the Instagram, Amani Mind. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook on Amani Mind as well.
Beautiful. And ladies, don't worry. All this stuff, if you're driving, working out, whatever, don't worry. I put it on the show notes so you could click over there really quick, and then boop, there's Linda, and you can get a hold of her and connect with her and all of that. Okay, before we truly sign off, is there anything else that I missed you want to share about Ayurveda, and anything that I didn't ask that you're like, oh, this is like prime stuff that I need to share as well?
There's so much information and knowledge. I think the biggest piece is I want to help as many individuals, and specifically women, on understanding truly their constitution. And I do a Prakriti analysis and then I put a lot of work and effort into getting individuals on the right track through Ayurvedic medicine. And that is my passion. And I want to help so many. So if somebody's struggling with even, their lifestyle or routine, or how can I feel healthier through certain habits, even, nutritionally is such a big piece of all of this. I would love to be your guide, the guide and mentor. That is truly where I want to empower women to take charge and to learn about this.
Well,
and I'm the one to help.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and your passion definitely shines through this podcast. I can totally hear it. And I love, because again, you've got your own personal experience of like, here is what I've gone through. And it's been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and adrenal fatigue, all that. And it's like, and I'm on this other side now, knowing what my body really needs, and spiritually, and my mind. And so those are much more in sync now. And it's It is so nice when I have guests on who are like, I've done the work and then I got trained in it. So,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's really where the passion lies of all of us, and all of us, we have that. And I believe in spirit, and the spirit guides us. And so that is really, I really hope that's what everyone is drawn to.
Yep, for sure. That is why it's the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Linda, for being on, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and just being, saying like, hey, I'm here, get a hold of me, let's make this work, so that you're not having to be in any more chronic pain or fatigue or anything like that, that you can help them maybe right what is not going well in their health world and go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything. Many blessings to you and everyone that's been listening.
Thank you for listening. And if you're interested to find out what your inner power is as an animal, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/quiz. Till next time.